Hey folks, welcome back. It has been quite a dreary day. It's rained all day. But when things need to be done, you just got to do it. My other rain jacket, I don't know, I've got 3 or 4 of them. But the one that I had on today, I left it in the house. This one was in my car. It's a little bit wrinkled. I don't care. The ducks don't care. It's not like I'm going to be going to some plaza or a mall or a function, right? Speaking of functions, last weekend, well, let me start out with there are a lot of things about living back in the woods. Not much communication, not many conversations being had, and just living a very quiet life, right? And then if you get thrown into a crowd, an excited crowd, and there are several hundred in this crowd, and they're shoulder to shoulder, and I'm not talking about going to a parade or an outdoor gathering. Well, it was an outdoor gathering, but there was just a lot of people there, a lot of loud people there, a lot of excited people, a lot of overwhelmed people, and a lot of attention-seeking people, let me tell you. So I was one of the ones that were way overwhelmed. It was just, I call it too much movement. Here, if something moves, I pretty much know what it is. It was a lot of movement, folks. A lot to pay attention to when you are aware of your surroundings and make a habit of being aware of your surroundings, and it becomes second nature. And you have all this movement, all this talking. It was very overwhelming for this chick here who lives a very quiet life in the woods. So I was quite overwhelmed. I used every coping skill that I knew just to be able to tolerate for 2 days. It was a long 2 days, folks. Let me tell you, it was a long 2 days. And one of those days was outside all day, and it poured, right? It poured. So the thing about living in the woods, and when you have to go out into public, and you don't do it very often, it's like jumping from here to on Mars. It was just so different, folks. So not only was it loud, way too many people, there was a lot of behaviors, and I saw a lot of mental illness. I did, folks. So I like being back in the woods. It took me all day yesterday to get my anxiety down. It really did. But yesterday was a decent day as far as weather. But I was just so exhausted from the weekend. But I worked in my garden some. I cut a bunch of poles yesterday morning for my indeterminate tomato plants. And we'll see. The garden was so wet, folks. I took those poles that were about this big around. I just was able to take them and drive them in the ground about 1.5 feet each until I hit real dense blue clay. 'Cause that's what I've got here is blue clay. And if anybody's ever tried to walk on blue clay, you know when it's wet, it is like walking on ice with water on top without creepers. It's very, very slippery. So, and it's also very, very dense. So it's like hitting a rock. But I was able to go down over 1 foot into the ground just by pushing them. And that's what I'm going to do this year. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to make a fancy trellis for up in my garden. I've got enough trellises up in my garden. These poles I can pull out the end of the season, put it in a pile, and use them next year. That's just that simple, folks. Nothing fancy here. It's got to work. That's all it's got to do. It's got to work. Everything up in my garden now looks okay, but I get up to go to the bathroom just about daylight, and there was a rabbit out in my garden. All right? So I'm like, I hadn't been up to check on that new area that I just developed with a very poor soil. Things are looking good, except for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I wasn't around to check on that, and apparently that rabbit not only liked my garden, I couldn't see any rabbit damage in my garden. I shooed it out, but apparently either that one or another one has been going right to town on my pole beans over there. Right? I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But I got a game camera up just to make sure. I know I'm going to have to fence it off, and I might have to replant my pole beans, or at least some of them. Some of them were nibbled off at about 4 to 5 inches high. I think some of those will recover. It's like tipping off a plant. It just gets bushier, right? So that's all right. As long as they produce, I don't care if it's bushy or scraggly. They've got to produce. That's the purpose of planting them, right? So I know I'm going to have to fence it off, but I didn't want to do that in the rain because I've got to go out and cut some poles. And I don't know if I'm going to use my plastic snow fence that I've got that's extra, and I'm reusing it from another area, or I'm just going to put sturdier poles in and use chain link, because I know it's not a deer. It's not a deer. The tomatoes I think are going to make it, but they're going to be awful far behind. And one of you had mentioned to extend the garden season on the other end is to put plastic over it to make it like a little greenhouse to extend the season a little bit more. I think I might have to do that. That's a really good idea. So I'll probably end up doing that, but we'll see. We'll see. These beans aren't for canning, or the ones I've got a small plot in that new area, and then I've got a pretty long trellis row of pole beans in my garden. I don't plan on canning any, so these are just all for fresh eating. So the rain's got to stop, folks. The sun has got to shine without it being 93 degrees. Well, it can be 93 degrees if it's not humid. The humidity, I mean, even I had a hard time breathing that day. The bugs don't mind the heat. The mosquitoes kind of stay hidden in the shade underneath a leaf or something. Then they'll come out toward the end of the day, first thing in the morning. The black flies were horrendous that day. The black flies were one of the worst I've ever seen them was yesterday. So, yeah, we can do without all those black flies. I guess all I come on to say was, hey, I'm still alive. It is a very, very busy time of year. I'm trying to get everything done. It's sometimes 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and that seems to be the case with the garden this year. Everything is very, well, a lot of things are very slow. Gather and Basket Homestead. You did a video on weeding tools, and I thought that I had something very similar to what you showed. Well, I dug it out, and it's not what you had in your video. This one, I believe, was a hoe, I think. It comes down pretty sharp. These right here are pretty thin. It looks so thin that it looks like I can bend them, but I can't. And I'll get it so you can see. There's a side view. So it has a pretty good hook, and what attaches to the rest of the wooden handle is right there. And had a wooden handle going out like this. So I'm pretty sure this was a hoe, not what you showed in your video. And I thought this had 3 prongs, but it only has 2. But I've always been meaning to put a wooden handle on here, and I think I might, because that looks like it'll work pretty good. Like I said, it's pretty thin right there. We'll see. We'll see. You tell me. You tell me. Is that similar to what I'm going to show you so it can be seen, but I guess it's right in front of my face? Is that something like you showed in your video? Or is this where the wooden handle comes out and it's actually a hoe? See how thin those are? Those are pretty thin, pretty pointy. And has 2 screws to hold these on. And then here's the back side, where the handle, that wooden handle, gets held on with. It looks like just a nail. So I think I'm going to put a handle on this. But you tell me, I don't know. I don't know. I do know it's old, and I do know it came from my grandfather's place. Something my grandfather had. So there's that. Bye-bye.